how's it going in the Anime Lounge? I'm Anaris Quinones. I am the voice of Mirko, and I hope you guys have a plus ultra day.
Anaris, how does it feel being back at a convention again after a year?
Well, you know what? My first convention after the whole pandemic was MetroCon. And that was really fun. You know, it's really surreal. Because for me, a lot of my popularity blew up while I was, living at home during the whole pandemic. So it's surreal to see all the fans, to see everyone be excited about things that I've been in and tell me that, my work means a lot to them. It's like, oh, really? I've been recording this out of my closet. That's crazy. It's awesome. It's crazy.
What challenges have you experienced with voice acting in the industry?
I think the number one challenge is rejection when it comes to any acting field, I think. You face a lot of opportunities, a lot of wonderful opportunities that you're really excited to do. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to audition for something that I grew up with. So it's like, oh, shoot, I could be a part of this. But it's tempering your expectations and, understanding that you're just trying to do your best work, whatever represents you. That's kind of what I've come to understand, where it's oh, okay, it's not about what impresses the casting director or what is expected. What would I do with this? And I think it's trying to find, your individuality and being comfortable with maybe your interpretation being rejected, And, aside from that, also being Black and Puerto Rican, the struggle of, wanting to get opportunities, because I think sometimes we can be put into a box. Hey, this is a Black person, let me send them Black sides or whatever. And it's oh, well, I want to record for, this cool, lighter-skinned character. Why can't I do that? So it's, definitely trying to be oh, okay. When will I get to a point where I don't have to work so hard to prove that I am good enough for those roles, when I myself know that I am? So it's different things.
Do you remember the first time you ever booked a role, and just what was going through your mind when you got that call?
Oh man, so for me, I came from the online community, actually. So I was very used to auditioning online, and I could not tell you what my first role was. It was probably for some fan project, and I don't know how I felt. Probably excited. But when it comes to industry work, my first anime was Kimono Friends. I was the voice of Crested Porcupine. And I remember at the time, I was still in college. Voice acting was kind of a side thing, and I wanted it to be more, but I also was kind of afraid of making the leap. And I was working as a mental health technician in a mental health facility, and I was just relaxing. I was on evening shift, about to get off around 12 o'clock, and I was doing my notes. I checked my phone, checked my junk folder, and I see, hey, congratulations, you've been cast. And I'm like, holy crap, what? And I was super elated because that didn't happen back then, because this is, pre-COVID times. I was living in Florida, so you don't normally get cast when you live out of state, because this was a Texas production. I was like, hell yeah, I'm gonna make this work, and I did. I flew over to Texas. I got to be in the booth for the very first time, and it felt like home. And yeah, I've been in love with it ever since.
Do you have a routine that you do before you get into character, before recording?
Not particularly. I think it's just sort of, it depends on the character, but I feel like in general, they're a piece of me, so it's very easy to slip into them. If I ever feel like I struggle with remembering exactly how I interpreted them, I'll look at my audition, listen to my audition. Okay, what did I do here? Cool, I'll do that. Sometimes I'll listen to the music from the show. I do that a lot with My Hero. In the 2 sessions that I've had, I'll put on the OSD and I will listen to You Say Run or any other tracks just to get myself hyped up because Mirko is a character that's super excited. So I think music is probably the biggest way to get into character for me. It's I don't know, it really bubbles my creative juices. So.
How important was it for you when you got to nab the role of Miracle in My Hero Academia? Because everyone loves that show, and there's a huge fan base. So how was it big for you when you got that? And were you familiar at all with the manga?
Oh, yeah. I was a fan of it. I'm pretty sure I started watching it in 2016. Back when I worked at an anime store, and I remember I was on Funimation's app, and I put it on, and I thought it was the coolest, most heartwarming show. I binged it, and it's the one anime that I can actually keep up with, because I am so terrible at keeping up with anime sometimes. Unless everything is out, it's, ongoing things I'm so terrible at. I can't. I try, but I can't keep up with My Hero, because it's just such a great show. And, I remember when I first moved to Texas, I think season 4 hadn't started, and I was really interested in auditioning for Aerie, but I didn't have that connection at the time because, I had just moved to Texas, and I hadn't recorded with Funimation yet, so, Colleen wouldn't know who I was. And I missed auditions for that, but then the pandemic happened, and Mirko got more popular, and as Mirko got more popular in the manga and everybody was talking about her on social media, people were discussing, oh man, I wonder who should play her, and I remember my name came up a lot, and I never read the manga, but, everyone was talking about her on Twitter, and I looked at her and I'm like, oh, she's a babe. And then, everyone was talking about how she has Latina movesets. The names are in Spanish, and it's what? She's Afro-Latina? That was, what was going through my mind, So I'm like, it would be so cool to voice her. But I didn't think it would happen, because, again, I still didn't have that connection, but you never know who's watching. So I actually got an audition from Colleen. I was ecstatic, and I worked really hard on the audition. I actually ended up spoiling myself on the manga because I wanted to make sure I got, I understood Mirko correctly. And so I would read her chapters in the manga, and I kind of workshopped the voice a little bit and then settled on my audition. I sent it. I didn't hear back for a few weeks, and I assumed that I did not get cast, which was oh man, that sucks. I'm probably not going to watch My Hero again if it's I'm going to have to switch to the sub. Gosh dang it. But then I get an email from Colleen, and Colleen's all hey, just so you know, you voice your voice in Mirko. I'm really? Oh my gosh. And it was just amazing because, I think Mirko especially means a lot to the POC community. I feel she's kind of black-coded and definitely Latino-coded, so, she's very relatable. So, because I'm Afro-Latina, it means a lot to represent that and, play this character and, make it badass. And I'm all about playing badass characters, so, yeah.
It's beautiful.
to kind of add on to that, how do you feel about the black representation in anime, and has this played a role in your career as far as casting?
It's funny because when I was growing up, you definitely didn't see a lot of black characters. It was more of like, oh, this character has slightly melanated skin. Okay, they're black. Even if they weren't. I remember I was watching Avatar: The Last Airbender, and it's like Asian culture and everything. But I was like, Katara's black, and I identify with her, because it's like
black. King Boomy. Boomy. King
Boomy?
Boomy. Earth Kingdom. He's black. He's definitely black.
We claim him. It's fine. He could be both. but I was, because I didn't see a lot of myself growing up, I got very attached to melanated characters, or characters that just felt like me, even if they weren't melanated. And anime, I think, very much lacked representation until I guess recent years. Now we're seeing an increase of black characters, and it's not like racist like Dragon Ball but it's actually like genuinely well written black characters, well designed and everything. And comparatively we're also getting more accurate representation, and it's not a stereotypical like read or whatever. Like these are like the actors that play these characters will really flesh them out, will make them more than their race, which is fantastic. I still think that there is a struggle to balance out, okay, yeah, you have like a black person playing a black character, but are you going to give them other stuff? Are you going to let them read for the other anime characters that, everyone else gets to read on all the time? So, I think we're getting more accurate representation, in terms of like anime and also casting. I just think that, one, in anime, it would be awesome to see like way more black people in general. But I also understand if it doesn't happen because, it's usually set in Japan, and we don't really have a lot of black people in Japan. But in terms of casting, I would love to see more black voice actors or POC actors in general. And I would love to see them play their race and more.
With your character, Miracle, we've only seen her for like 2 scenes, basically. Mm-hmm. And there's so much hype on that character.
I know.
Are you ready for when you got 2, 4, 10 episodes, and the hype is really gonna get up there?
Oh, hell yeah. Like I've only recorded her, like my sessions for both of those scenes were 15 minutes. So I've only had like 30 minutes with her properly. But I am so ready for when I have more. Hopefully season 6 is where we will see that. And yeah, she's an awesome character. She's a badass character, and we'll see.
What was your favorite role that you played so far?
Oh, so far? It's hard for me to say, because they're all like my children, kind of. Like, I don't know, when it comes to being creative, I feel like anything you work on, like any character, story, project, whatever, like you give a piece of yourself, and that is what, makes it yours. So it's hard for me to say, like, which is my favorite. But, I recently announced that I am voicing Mito in Sword Art Online, the movie. And she is definitely one of my, favorites. I worked really hard on that character, really hard on that performance. So I'm not going to say she's my favorite character, but it's one of my favorite performances. I'll leave it at that.
To follow that up, will that movie, will that be your biggest premiere?
It'll be my first premiere. Like I've never been in a movie at all. Like, and especially not as well. You know what? Take that back. I was in Goblin Slayer, but that didn't go to theaters. So that's gonna be like my first movie that goes to theaters. So it's awesome. And especially because it's like, oh, this is something I'm really proud of, you know? And I was proud of my work in Goblin Slayer, too. If that went to theaters, it's like, oh, I'm so glad because I worked super hard on that. But I'm ecstatic for this one, yeah.
You played Yelena in Attack on Titan. I know that show is about to end soon. So how
After so
does that
long.
feel? You know, now that it's kind of come full circle and you know you're about to close a chapter on that character and on the show itself.
I know. Attack on Titan is another show that I'm a big fan of, you know, prior to getting the role. So it's crazy to be a part of its ending, and to, you know, close the chapter soon. It's like, oh, you know, because I've read the manga, I already know how like everything wraps up. So it's like I know how much time I have left with my character. I know what she's gonna get into, and you know, I'm excited to portray the scenes that she will have in this last part of the season, and. You know, it's always bittersweet to say goodbye. So it's just about doing your best, I think, all the way to the end. That's all I can do, honor the character.
If you could voice anyone you wanted, like past or present, who'd you pick?
I'm gonna go for the past. I was a huge fan of Rainy and Sailor Moon, Sailor Chibi Moon or Mini Moon. When I was little, my voice was basically like I sounded like her. Like I'll listen to old clips and I'm like, oh shoot, I really did sound like her. But I think it would have been cool to play like that bratty kid, you know, the bratty, very sassy kid that for some reason has a fake gun, you know, that she's just pointing at her mother, you know. I think she would have been a fun role for sure. Yeah.
Your role on Attack on Titan final season. We kind of thought that character would be just a side character, but she's more influential to the show than. Can you speak on that?
Yeah. You know, I remember when I first saw her in the anime, I thought at first she was Armin. And I was like, oh, what is Armin doing here? And then I realized it wasn't Armin. But you know, she's definitely a character that she works behind the scenes. You know, she is very stoic. She's very polite. You know, she has that military upbringing and demeanor. But she doesn't really flaunt what she's trying to do. She is somebody who works very discreetly. And that's why she gets away with the things that she does. And I think even with my performance with her, it was always about never giving away too much, if nothing at all, you know. It was always making sure that the viewer had nothing to really suspect with her. So I think it becomes a surprise when, you know, you do have the turn of, like, the end of part 1 of the final season where it's like, oh, yeah, you know, I'm actually trying to, you know, work with Zeke and everything, and this has been my plan all along. But it's also, like, not super surprising either, so it's like she's very, what's the word? Smooth, you know. She's just very smooth character. It's like, I know what I'm doing, but yeah, I'm not gonna give up my secrets. I like that about her.
I want to talk about another franchise you were part of, Pokemon.
Yes.
How important was it for you being able to play Nessa, because that's such a, you know, a fan favorite character, of course. You know, like, what sort of connections do you have with that?
That one meant a whole lot because I grew up watching Pokemon and, you know, playing Pokemon, getting the cards and everything. Like, that was, I guess, technically my first anime. And I was super in love with it. And I loved Misty a lot, actually. Misty was one of my favorite characters, and I've always had an affinity for water. Water's like my favorite thing. Maybe it's, being born and raised in Florida. But yeah, playing Nessa, it's like, it's like, but playing Nessa, it's like, it's like fulfilling a childhood dream, Like, I remember seeing her in Sword and Shield, and I thought she was so awesome, and then, I got the auditions for Pokemon Twilight Wings. I saw her, and I'm like, oh, wow, I love her, but I never expected to book her, because, at the time that I got those auditions, I was still kind of early on in the industry, so, never once did I think, oh yeah, I'm gonna book Pokemon, and I'm gonna book, like, this character because I deserve this. Like, no, never once. I was just sort of like, I'm happy to be here. But, yeah, but when I did book her, I was, it was very, like, healing to my inner child, I was excited and very sentimental, and I worked really hard on making sure that I did the best I could with her. I remember right before my session for Nessa, I sat outside by my pool, and I was just kind of like thinking like what is going through her mind in the special and everything. And I just felt very in tune with her, and it was just so easy to play her because it felt like I was playing myself in a way. And then I also knew how much she meant to the Black community, especially. We had Iris before her, but I think Nessa was like the fan favorite for the Black community for sure. And I knew how much it would mean to them to have somebody Black playing Nessa, because I think for Iris we didn't have somebody Black, it was somebody else, so I guess this would have been a first in a way. And it was an honor and a blessing, and I'm very grateful to have played her.
You've done a wide range of jobs, like commercials, animations, anime, cartoons. Which category would you say you have the most passion about, and then which category would you say you have the most fun with?
I think in my head, when I was figuring out what fields I was interested in, I'm always more enamored with video games because I feel like you can tell so many interesting stories with video games. I think of The Last of Us, Nier, Final Fantasy and stuff, and it's it would be fantastic to, have ownership over the character, not worry about lip flaps and anything, but also tell this fantastical story. So I think video games is something that I'm very passionate about, and it's something I want to get more into. But I think I have the most fun with animation. Because it's just sometimes you can go between these wacky, exaggerated performances, and sometimes you can just be chill and be human, and be yourself, and you also have so much creative control. I could talk to the writer and be like, hey, why does this character say this? Is it because of XYZ? And they'll have a conversation with me. And so, I always feel like with animation especially, it feels way more collaborative. I think that's my favorite part about voice acting in general, how collaborative it could be. So I think animation is probably the one that I have the most fun with, for sure.
Can you talk about your friendship with Zeno?
My friendship with Zeno, oh man. So, what was it, the beginning of 2020? Was that when the movie came out, Image, the movie with Hawks? Somewhere in 2020? I feel like it was.
The second movie?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the second movie.
I believe it came out November. I think. It came out in the winter.
I think it was December or November.
Yeah, it was either one of those months.
Either way, whenever it had the premiere, I remember Zeno like randomly reached out to me. He's like, "Hey, do you want to go to the premiere?" I'm like, "I don't even know you, but sure." You know, but also at the time I was like at home dealing with like family stuff, and I was like, you know what, thanks, but I'm actually gonna pass. So I changed my mind. But he is a very generous and honest and kind person. And I always vibe with that, you know? So he was somebody that I grew close with very quickly. And it's funny because, like, I think the way we work is very similar. We will spend way too much time on auditions. We will ask for a lot of takes because we are determined to have the perfect acting choices every time. And just the way that we approach things is very similar. And so I respect him a lot. I respect his work. I respect his ability to be honest, both, you know, while recording and not recording. And I just think he's an amazing dude. He's pretty awesome.
We see you guys a lot on Twitter going back and forth, back and forth.
Oh yeah, sometimes I'll like mess with him on the whole Mirko thing. I don't personally care. He can be married to whoever he wants to be. But, you know, I like to tease him about that. And that's kind of actually part of why we got so close, because, you know, he was the first person to really say, hey, I want Anaris to voice Mirko, and he was always going on about that constantly. And I remember messaging him about it, and he would tell me, I will put in a word for you. Like, I will do anything I can to make this happen. And, you know, I almost want to say that, you know, he's probably one of the reasons why I got the role, or at least got the audition. So, you know, he's just very supportive, and he's always been supportive of me, and, you know, in turn, I've always been supportive of him. So, you know, it's, we're good friends, very good friends.
Is there anyone you ever wanted to work with, like within the industry? Someone maybe you looked up to, that you wanted to work with?
It would be amazing to work with Laura Bailey. But not like in an anime, right? Like, I would love to work with her in an animation or like video game where like I can actually interact with her and bounce off of her. She's part of the reason why I got into voice acting in the first place. I remember in the Fullmetal Alchemist Conqueror of Shambhala movie, there's a commentary track, and she was talking about how she, like, her approach to auditioning for Lust, and she was going into, like, how, you know, it wasn't just about sounding sexy, like, I need to figure out where that was coming from and everything, and just discussing, like, you know, how much thought there can be into voicing a character, and I never thought of it like that when I started, or when I first heard about voice acting, so I'm like, oh, it's like that? That's so interesting. And I've always loved her performances, I always loved the characters she's played, and I love her energy and everything, and I love how she's gone from, you know, being in things like Dragon Ball and Soul Eater and Fullmetal Alchemist to being in The Last of Us. Like, her career has grown so much, and I always aspired to, I guess, have a career like her, be able to be as a, what's the word, well-rounded as her, I guess. So I respect her a lot, and I think it would be amazing to work with her.
Yeah, that's a good choice. She's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of building off of that, what can we expect from you in the future? Like, what type of projects would you like to work on, and what type of projects are you aiming to be on?
You can expect a lot more exciting things in the future that I can't talk about and I don't quite want to hint at, but, you know, I am always working. There is more things to announce always. And, you know, I'm hoping to work on more cartoons, you know, work on more video games especially. I want to get more into that. And, you know, I'm always learning. I'm always trying to do my best. I also want to get into casting, so that's something, like, you know, I hope I can do in the future as well. And, yeah, just keep your eyes peeled, keep followed, or keep yourself followed to my Twitter, because that's where I post everything immediately, because I have no self-control. And yeah.
Did you enjoy working on One Direct Priority? Like the deep subjects that they touched on in the series?
Yeah, 100%. I watched the first episode of One Direct Priority, and I fell in love with it because I didn't know what to expect at all. Like, nothing at all. I'm just like, okay, this looks pretty. Interesting name. Let's go. Let's see. I love emotionally honest shows. I think that's a very honest show. I think it's a very raw show that's not afraid to cover difficult topics. And I don't even think like they cover these difficult topics to have like, you know, trauma porn or anything, right? Like it's just like, hey, this is what it's like to be a teenage girl. And I respect that so much, and I love the characters. I love especially. Is somebody that I really relate to. And so when I got the opportunity to audition, I was ecstatic. And when I booked Rika, I was, you know, even more ecstatic. I mean, she was a character type I hadn't quite played before, and she's, you know, someone who, the way that she handles her emotions is very different to how I handle my emotions. I tend to be more honest and be like, yeah, you know what, I am pretty down. But Rika is the type that will hide it with a smile. She is someone who will overcompensate in order to, you know, hide her feelings. And learning how to show my emotions like that, or show her emotions like that, was a challenge, but a very, you know, interesting challenge. And I think I learned a lot about myself while playing her. I found a lot of things that I related to when it came to her. And, you know, I think it's a show that is very important. I hope that more people get to watch it. And, you know, it's a blessing to play a character like Rika, because I know she's like the most relatable one out of the bunch. So it means a lot to me. That show means a lot to me.
Your reasons for wanting to be like a variety or more well-rounded voice actor, is that just your personal want for like video game more so, and cartoons more so?
Yeah, I think, I mean, for me, like, I love being creative, you know. My first love was writing, you know, and then I got into voice acting, which I feel like is kind of the same thing, you know. And I love indulging in media. You know, a lot of my favorites is Steven Universe and Undertale and Fullmetal Alchemist and all these things, and it's spread across different mediums. And I think it's amazing how many stories of different kinds that you can get from different places all over the world as well. And I would love to just be a part of as many amazing stories as I can. So that's my reason for wanting to, I guess, be more well-rounded, because I want to have more opportunities. I don't want to be limited to just one thing, you know. I want to just be out there and be creative. That's always been my thing.
Do you have any advice for other people attempting to voice act?
Have fun. That's like my number one, because I feel like now in the age of social media, everyone wants to monetize every hobby that they do, right? Like, oh, okay, I'm gonna play video games. I'm gonna stream on Twitch, and then I'm gonna get paid for it, like that. Like, you know, I think people want success like immediately with the things that they get into. And for me, when I started voice acting, like, you know, I didn't care about the money or the popularity. I was like, hey, this is fun. You know, this is really cool. And so I always, like, emphasize, like, make sure you're having fun, you know, make it a hobby. Don't expect too much at the beginning, and, you know, find your passion for it, because it's such a hard field full of so much rejection. Your job isn't quite voice acting characters like Mirko or Rika or whatever. Your job is auditioning and accepting that you will not book like 90% of what you audition for. And so, I feel like the passion is like your foundation, because when you're dealing with the rejection, you can always fall back on the passion. And aside from that, take classes, talk to your peers. I always recommend this site called Voice Acting Club. It's like this fantastic site made by Kira Buckland, who it's like the site where you have people who are new, up and coming, and then you also have professionals like me, AJ Beckles, and other people who want to share our expertise, want to discuss the industry, and I feel like it's like the epitome of like the voice acting community, because the voice acting community is so kind. We lift each other up. We're not exactly super like, oh, I'm better than you. Like I'm gonna get all the roles, not you. Like we want everyone to succeed. So I always recommend like joining those sites and like, making friends, because it means a lot in this industry, and I think it makes all the rejection and struggles like worthwhile. So.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you guys so much.